Okay, imagine this. You're sitting in your maritime law exam. You turn the page, and there it is. A massive question about a container ship that just sank. What happens next? Who's responsible? Don't panic. In the next few minutes, we're going to break down the Nairobi Wreck Removal Convention so you can absolutely nail that question.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll get the lingo down, the core language of the convention. Then, we'll walk through exactly what to do in a crisis. After that, we figure out who's actually on the hook for removal, follow the money trail to see who pays, and finish up with the all-important legal deadlines. Let's jump in.
All right, first things first, the language. You know, to really score top marks on any exam, you've got to speak the language, use the right terminology. So let's lock in these key definitions.
So what even is a wreck? Well, it's not just a ship sitting at the bottom of the ocean. The definition is way broader. It also covers a ship that's about to sink or run aground. That's a little detail you can drop in your exam answer to show you really get it. It shows the convention is proactive.
Okay, next up, where do these rules apply? The default area is a country's exclusive economic zone, the EEZ. But, and here's a little tip for your exam, a country can choose to extend these rules into its own territorial sea. Making that distinction? That's what's going to impress an examiner.
Now this one is the big trigger for everything else we're about to talk about. A wreck isn't just a wreck. It becomes a legal problem when it's officially a hazard. And that could mean it's a danger to other ships, or it's an environmental nightmare, like an oil leak. The second a wreck is called a hazard, a clock starts ticking. Which brings us to Section 2. So we've got a hazardous wreck. What happens right away? Well, the convention lays out a super clear 3-step emergency plan.
This whole sequence is just pure logic. It's so easy to remember. Step 1, the ship's master has to report it, immediately. Step 2, the coastal state takes charge. They warn everyone and pinpoint its exact location. And Step 3, they make sure the hazard is clearly marked so no one else runs into it. Report, locate, mark. Simple, effective, and perfect for an exam answer.
So the immediate danger is handled, but you've still got this huge wreck just sitting there. And this leads us to the biggest question of all, the one the convention was created to answer. Who has to clean up this mess?
And there's your answer. Boom. Clean and simple. The responsibility falls right on the shoulders of the registered owner. It's their ship, so it's their problem. Honestly, if you only remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. This is the heart of the entire convention.
But what if the owner just decides, nah, not doing it? Well, this convention has teeth. The state that's affected can step right in, handle the removal themselves, and then send the massive bill straight to the owner. There is no getting out of this.
All right, let's move on to the part everyone really cares about, following the money. Wreck removals are insanely expensive. So, who pays? This is a huge area for any exam question, so listen up.
The convention uses something called strict liability. That's a fancy way of saying the owner is on the hook for the costs, period. And to make sure the money is actually there when it's needed, there's a safety net, compulsory insurance for any ship over a certain size. It's this powerful 1-2 punch of liability and guaranteed funds. Now, even though that liability is strict, it's not totally absolute. The owner can try to get out of it using one of these 4, and only these 4 defenses. But let me tell you, these are incredibly hard to prove. We're not just talking about a bad storm. It has to be a freak of nature level event. You should definitely memorize these 4 exceptions.
And here is that key number I mentioned earlier. What's the magic number for that mandatory insurance? It's 300 gross tonnage. In any law exam, specific numbers like this are absolute gold, so lock this one in your brain. 300 GT.
Finally, let's talk about the clock. The right to go after someone for the costs of wreck removal doesn't last forever. The convention sets some very clear, very strict legal deadlines, which brings us to our final section.
You need to know 2 key deadlines here. First, once the wreck has been officially labeled a hazard, you've got 3 years to start a legal action for the costs. But there's also a hard deadline. Nothing can be done more than 6 years after the ship first went down. So it's a 3-year window to act, but it all has to happen within a 6-year absolute limit.
So let's go all the way back to that exam room. The question on the paper reads, a ship sinks in a storm of an exceptional, inevitable, and irresistible character. Is the owner liable? You now know that exact phrase is one of the 4 get-out-of-jail-free cards. The answer is no. See? You've got this. That's the Nairobi Convention decoded. Good luck.